Hi everyone, welcome back to AP Psychology with me, Miss Baines, your teacher, where you can take advantage of being able to pause and rewind me as I deliver you our latest content. So go ahead and grab those felt tip markers, get yourself nice and comfy, and of course don't forget those ever important binder notes that go in lockstep order with this video called Unit 7, Video 5, Theories of Emotion, which can be found on pages 8 and 9 of your binder notes. I'll see you on the other side. Alright, so we're moving right along in our Unit 7 notes. We've been finished with, or are now finished with, our motivation notes, and now we're going to move on to a new term called emotions, okay? Just like there were theories of motivation, there are theories of emotion, and that's where we're going to start. So there are theories of emotion, which is a mix of both physiological activation, right, of the body, being the physical body response that you have, the expressive behavior, so how you physically show or emote your feelings, and then you have the conscious experience. So the thinking, the cognitive process of what's going on in your brain. The James Lange theory is first. There are some theories here in our notes, and you have to make sure that you memorize them, okay? Fun fact, I happened to do my honors thesis in graduate school on Henry James' little novella called The Turn of the Screw. It was called Who's Watching the Children? And he is William James's brother. Anyway, William James and Carl Lange proposed an idea that was completely opposed to the common sense view of emotions. And the theory that they came up with proposes that physiological activity precedes the emotional experience. Think about that. So bodily changes ultimately cause you to feel the emotions, is what they are saying. So you have a stimulus. Let's say you're lying on the couch and you see a man is outside of your window. This would be an example. Physiological arousal, so your heartbeat starts racing, your adrenaline starts get pumping, your sympathetic nervous system start dilating your pupils. Bad guy, oh my God, scary. You start perspiring. Remember Nervous Nelly? That creates the emotion of being incredibly scared. Okay, the next theory is called Cannon-Bard theory, and we're going to kind of move quickly through these because you need not to only know these theories, but you need to be able to compare them to each other. Okay, so Walter Cannon and a Bard questioned James and Lange, and they proposed that emotion-triggering stimuli in body's arousal takes place simultaneously. So James Lange said it's the stimulus of our arousal and then afterwards the emotion. But these guys said our physical arousal causes the emotion, where Cannon-Bard said, no, our physical response does not create the emotion. They both happen simultaneously at the same time because they all have something to do with each other. So the thalamus produces both the physical and the emotion simultaneously. As the thalamus in the head sends messages through the brain and the body, the stimulus that you have, the physiological response, let's say, right? Somebody puts their hand on your shoulder from behind you and you tense up, right? Then you have the emotion of being like, oh my God, you scared me so much, right? One happens, then the other. These guys thought, no, both of those things were simultaneous. Our next theory is the two-factor theory. The two-factor theory, and now you need to jot this down, is called the Schachter-Singer theory. So the other guys just stuck with their last names. We need to know these guys' last names as well as what they called their two-factor theory. The Schachter-Singer theory said, there's something else. There's another factor in addition to the physiological response. That our physiological and our cognitions, so you should circle and underline, right? And cognitions, it creates emotions. Emotions have two factors, the physical arousal and the cognitive label. The cognitive label being what you should write down and engrave it into your brain that it is super duper important, is interpreting environmental cues and physical arousal and placing a label on it, okay? Let's say you see that man in the dark alley at night. What What this says is when your heart starts beating quickly and your breathing rate increases, plus let's say the man is then waving at you and smiling, and therefore you label it as, oh, that looks like so-and-so. This is not a dangerous situation. So this would be a cognitive labeling of this being a non-dangerous situation. I'm not scared. I'm happy to see him. Oh my God, okay, so if you just have the physical response, then you would remain scared. But because you're able to bring in your cognitive labeling, I can be happy now. So physiological similarities. Here's the thing, and you should make sure to drop this down, kind of in the margin, maybe around chapter Singer. Physiological responses are pretty much similar across the emotions of fear, anger, love, and boredom. So excitement and fear involve similar physiological arousal. Let me give you a scenario. Let's say you're watching the premiere of Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Paranormal Activity 502. You're probably sweating and breathing and your heart is beating, pumping a little shaky, okay? Now let's say your brother or sister or whatever comes behind you and one of them goes boo and pushes you. Or another example, when your sister or brother say, far as you close without asking, and it makes you so mad that they come in your room and steal something of yours, and what you're doing now, your heart rate is also increasing, right? And your breathing is increasing. You're sweating and you're getting a little shaky because you're so angry. Do you get what I'm saying? The physical responses to anger and fear, or even excitement and fear, are incredibly similar. Physiological differences with responses like finger temperature, facial muscles change during fear, rage, and joy. The amygdala, remember that guy, shows differences in activation during emotions of anger and rage. It's the activity of the left hemisphere when we're happy and the right hemisphere and repressed emotions. So what is the connection between cognition and emotion? Between how we think cognition, and how we feel. Can we actually change our emotions by changing our thinking? And I just have a little demonstration here. What I want you to think about is if you've been sad and if someone has ever told you that if you smile, it will help you feel better. Right? They've got some research on their side there. And if you create an emotion outwardly and you create the attitude outwardly, like smiling, you stand up and sit a little bit straighter, that will cause you to have a more positive set of emotions. Which almost all research that I've seen will support this are two roots to emotion. Just a couple more things to talk about here. We've got some more names here. So next up is the biggest name here.
Zayans and Ledoux, 1984.
Without a conscious appraisal. So just as the young say that we have the event, then we have the emotional response for a conscious appraisal. So he argues that emotional reactions can be quicker than our interpretations of the situation. We feel before we think. Let me give you an example. Let's say we do feel scared. When we're in the woods, all of a sudden you hear a twig crack off, okay? And it makes you jump and you get startled, right? We flinch a little bit and we say, oh, was that just a tree branch? Oh my God, that was so scary. The emotional response, right? We are afraid and we have the emotional response. So research on the neurological process, he supports this idea that some neural pathways involved in emotion bypass the cortical areas involved in thinking. So one pathway runs from the eye or the ear via the thalamus to the amygdala, not even reaching the cortical areas. This shortcut enables quick precognitive emotional responses before our intellect intervenes. So Lazarus argues that while our brain does process a lot of unconsciously, even instantaneously felt emotions, they require some sort of cognitive appraisal of the situation. So otherwise, how do we know what we are responding to? So Lazarus says we have the event and then we have the appraisal, even if it only takes a split second before we have an emotional response. So the appraisal may be effortless, and we may not be conscious of it, but it's still happening. So with the example of feeling scared in the woods, and then you hear crack, and you had to appraise that situation as one that is dangerous, or in order to feel scared, I don't know about you, but a twig cracking when I'm all alone in the dark woods and it's getting darker doesn't make me just scared. It's I have cognitively appraised the situation as a scary one. Otherwise, are dimensions of emotion. Emotions of two. We have balance, which I want you to think of as positive or negative, okay? Balance is positive or negative emotions. And then arousal is like the intensity, the high or low intensity of the emotion. So this is kind of like the continuum, right? It's two dimensions in one. So we have a circle, okay? So high arousal up here with the positive balance being over here, okay? This being high, a positive arousal balance, these being positive with low arousal, whereas these are negative balance with low arousal, and that you're bored or sluggish or just kind of like whatever. Whereas high arousal, right, with a negative balance is very intense anger and feelings. And yes, you need to know each of these, but most particularly the differences between balance and arousal. That's all I've got for you tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.